I just meant like, I want to hang out with you. I
Oh, well, yeah.
I want to have a beer with you or a glass of wine because
I'm in.
I love your energy.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I mean, so we haven't met, this is the first time, isn't this?
No, we met a few years back. And I don't remember what the event was. I was trying to think. It was it was pre-COVID, obviously.
Right.
But for some reason, I wanted to say we were both there in support of somebody we knew from our networks, and we just happened to talk.
Did you know Wendy Nolan?
I don't know her personally, but I know the name.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that who you were thinking that introduced us? Maybe
like at the Grand Duca. Did you ever go to any of those network events there, or was it more like Mark Nathan, maybe downtown?
Yeah, it was someplace downtown. I actually thought it was at the W.
The W. Yeah. Okay. Now, but that's years ago.
And for some reason, I was thinking it might be for Jen Austen.
Yes.
That was it. That was it. Yeah. When they did it back in that kind of little speakeasy thing.
Speakeasy. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Got it. Woohoo!
Guys, I'm super excited to introduce you to Elise Krentzel. Elise and I have known each other for a number of years, but she just brought out a book called Under My Skin, Drama, Trauma, and Rock and Roll, about her time being a rock journalist when she toured Japan with Kiss. She is an infinitely interesting individual. She is someone that has been an ever-present force in Austin. Super grateful that she agreed to be a part of this today. So let's get started. Guys, I am super excited to introduce you to Elise. Elise, thank you for stopping by the Ripple Effect podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. You're the one who's rippling out the effect of positivity, man. I love it.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I feel like I mean, no pun intended. I feel like I've got the actual rock star on the show here. I mean, you have so much going on right now, and I'm excited to dig into and learn more about your book. But as I always do with all these interviews, I just want to give our audience a little bit of a perspective on sort of your background, kind of what I call an origin story. I'm a big comic book guy, right? And I'm also a big biography individual. So I love the backgrounds of all the rock bands, how they came together, the interpersonal stories, etc. So let's get a little sense of your background, and let's get an understanding of your origin story. How did you become who you are today, and sort of, kind of what helped them guide and direct you to where you are in your life right now?
Well, I like to say to people, once upon a time, I came from a dysfunctional family, but I brought the fun back into dysfunction.
I love it.
And that took decades, of course.
Yeah.
Still, I'm a survivor. I have what is called chutzpah, which means guts. Back in the day, that was not appreciated by a lot of boys.
Yeah.
And men. Oh, well.
Their loss, right? Their total loss.
Basically, I was born and bred in New York City. Ooh, kitty.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Queens, one of the better boroughs.
Yeah.
I decided to put all of my energy into music and writing as a teenager because I had to escape the horrendous and craziness of my family. If you've watched the TV show Shameless, welcome to my family.
Wow, really?
Well, we didn't have a big one. It was just one brother, but the stories that are in my book, a few of the stories, it was crazy. And if anyone could survive that, which I did,
yep.
I must be the poster child for, hey, how do you make a life out of that?
Yeah.
Origin story. Okay, so what happened was I became a teenage journalist. Did you ever see the film or read the book Almost Famous?
Yes. Okay.
My life story then was Almost Famous meets Shameless.
I love that description. That's awesome.
So at 16, I became a published journalist while still in high school for Circus Magazine. And then at 19 years old, I was already living on my own. I had already been to Europe on
Wow.
this teen tour for my Sweet 16 with 10 other kids.
Yeah.
And it's a spoiler alert, but it's too funny. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this show.
You can say anything you want.
Okay.
We're all friends here.
Put it this way. I discovered my sexuality in Europe with like trying every country.
Yeah.
And I used to say my favorite mode of transportation was humping. So,
Yeah.
having had that experience, I was a woman when I came back to New York City. And I was better than you because I had culture. So I moved into an apartment at 19 years old. I get a call from the manager of KISS. Do you want to go on tour? We're going to Japan. Because now I was a full-fledged rock journalist, not very well known, but
Right.
you know, bootstrapping, hustling. And I said, no, I don't like the band.
Brutal honesty is not your strong suit. I'm getting
Oh,
this.
not at all. As subtle as a sledgehammer.
I love it. So how did they talk you into it? How did you end up on the tour?
You know, I do believe in fate and destiny.
Yeah.
And when those two cross, that's when magic happens.
Yeah.
So I'm walking down Broadway and I'm looking at the Broadway show awnings, and I see this very curious awning for a show called Pacific Overtures. So I look a little closer. Oh, it's about Japan. It's about how Japan survived after World War II and made a comeback, and all the inventions and the electronics industry and the automobile industry, and they're coming out, so to speak. This is 77.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, wow, that's interesting. So I bought myself a ticket in the 3 weeks between the first and second call from the management of KISS. I see the show. I was mesmerized. And then I had an interview with Paul Simon, and his publicist chose a Japanese restaurant to conduct the interview. So it was my first time at a Japanese restaurant, because in New York, Chinese food back in those days, right? 60s, 70s was what Tex-Mex is to Texas.
Yeah.
You know, Chinese food on every corner, but
Yep.
very few, if not any, Japanese restaurants in New York City. In the 70s, there were about 4. And they catered to the United Nations.
Yeah.
And those families. Okay, anyway, I'm interviewing Paul Simon at this Japanese restaurant. First time eating Japanese food. Fell in love with it. Like, oh my God, this is fantastic food. First time I had sushi. Unbelievable. Now, so sushi, because I love food. This play, I love the performing arts. I'm like, this is what? 2 things like that in this period of time?
Wow.
I got to go.
Yeah.
Even if I don't like them. But there's one caveat. I have to be able to write whatever I want. And I told them that, and they said, sure, she's a little kid. What does she know? She'll love it.
Yeah.
And I went.
And what did you think? I mean, what was the first thing once you got there and you realized this was the smart decision? What was that, sort of eureka moment for you?
The eureka moment was stepping off the plane on the tarmac in Tokyo and seeing 5,000 screaming girls, all dressed like KISS fans. And I was just overwhelmed, and being objective, but yet very much part of a team. I was a critic, yet there's an empathetic side where I am reaching out towards what other people are feeling.
Yeah.
I'm taking that into consideration. It's not just my own critique, right? You take in, if you can, 365.
Yep.
Probably at that age, I was taking in about 140, but I tried.
Yeah.
And I was convinced that this is so massive. They're bigger than the Beatles,
Yep. Yeah.
at least in Japan.
Yeah.
And I just was curious and taking everything in about the culture, about them, the band in Japan, everybody's reaction. It was just incredible.
Well, and like you said earlier, right? You weren't, you didn't start off as a fan. So you had this objective kind of perspective coming into it, sort of don't really know what I'm getting into, but then you walk off the plane and all of a sudden it's like it hits you, right? You're like,
Yeah,
wow, this is something significant.
more than significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for the next, I think it was 17 days, we traveled all over Japan. We learned about the culture, the cuisine, of course, a little bit of the language, and Kiss's impact. I mean, massive impact
So was
on
that part of the pre-plan for the tour? Like, hey, get everybody, familiar, or was that, I mean, was that a preconceived plan ahead of time before they
yes,
started doing show dates to give
yes.
everybody that perspective?
I believe so. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
they
awesome.
made it very interesting because, of course, we went to all the rehearsals. We
Yep.
went to every single show at night, but we also had some free days,
Yeah.
free nights, where we were allowed to amble and wander through the streets of Kyoto and Tokyo, and it was amazing.
Yep. And as a 19-year-old, you're drinking this all in and like, oh my gosh, that not only do you have this influence of such a powerful band, but now you're seeing this, sort of, transformative perspective that you have in terms of what they've captured in terms of hearts and imagination over in Japan.
Correct. And while I noticed that, it was transforming me.
Yeah.
I took the blue pill.
When you had been a devout red pill before that, right?
Correct. I was easily swayed because I was that opinionated.
Yeah. Well, so, let me back you up just a second, then we'll come
Yeah,
back to Japan. But,
yeah.
what was it about writing about music in the first place that intrigued you at the age of 16?
Actually, it was earlier than that.
Okay.
So,
16 is
so
when you got the job, though, like your first
right,
paid gig. Okay.
right. And basically 2 years prior to that, all I was doing, because I felt I was a walking Wikipedia back in the day. So an encyclopedia for all you folks who don't know what that is,
Yeah.
an encyclopedia of musicology.
Love it.
And I had this ability because I played classical string guitar. I had this ability to hear a song maybe twice at most, and I would remember all the lyrics.
Wow.
And so I analyzed the lyrics, and I was smitten with the bands that had back in those days. Remember, album rock, concept rock,
Yep.
glam rock. So bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, or Yes, or of course David Bowie, or Mott
Yep.
the Hoople. Besides the sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I mean, there was an underpinning that had political statements, that
Yep.
had societal and cultural statements. So I was interested in all that because my mother was this uber liberal who took me to March on Washington for the Women's March when I was 13. She was in her 30s, very young mom.
Yeah.
And she told me to burn my trainer bra because we were burning bras.
Yeah.
So I burned my trainer bra.
That's awesome.
So the writing part of it really kicked in at probably at around 14 when my maternal grandmother died, because she was my beloved, and she
Yeah.
was closer to me probably than my mother.
Wow.
So when she died, I was depressed. I was grieving. And so it was me and my dog, in my bedroom, and I just poured my heart out into words and poetry.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, not awesome that you had to go through it, but to actually have that realization that that was your outlet, right? At that point.
I don't know if it works like that, Steve, but it's more like you do something because you can no longer keep it in.
Yeah.
And then you do it. And it's just like, oh, this feels good.
Yep.
Ah, okay. Plus, my father was a music aficionado. He had a jazz collection of more than 2,000 LPs, including
Wow.
78s, 45s,
Wow.
33 RPMs from the 1920s to the 1940s. So we grew up with that.
Yep.
And then he was the first sales rep on the East Coast for Panasonic. So imagine this, I'm 7 years old, 8 years old. He sneaks me into a concert to see the Herman's Hermits. Do the Freddie.
Yeah.
Right? And not only that, he would get swag. He got all these albums. And so here was me, little Barbara Streisand wannabe, singing, to all my parents' friends at parties while they were getting high on all their cocktails and their marijuana. I was allowed to run around and sing.
You were a performer way back then. Well, so how did you make the, kind of back to the origin just for one sec, but how did you make the determination, hey, I'd rather write about music than actually be a musician?
Oh, that was really easy. So when my parents, we were jettisoned out of New York City to Wasteland, USA, Long Island, which, sorry to say, folks, but if you're from Austin to Leander, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like there's nothing out there but cookie cutter houses.
Yep.
And so we were jettisoned there. I was 13 years old. It was miserable.
Yeah. That had to feel like a reform school.
Oh my God. I mean, first of all, these people had never met a Jew. I was like, boo. Not only that, they didn't listen to FM radio.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Oh, AM?
I'm like, you hicks, you're listening to AM radio? So it was beyond me. I was just like, nobody even heard of, I don't know, Cream or Traffic or Eric Clapton, Derek and the Dominoes. They didn't know what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, great. Okay. We were allowed to wear, this is 1969, 70. We were allowed in New York City to wear jeans, to elementary school. When I got to junior high school, we weren't allowed to wear pants.
Oh.
I didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
Okay, so origin story. We moved out there, and because we moved out there, I did not have the same music teacher. I loved my music teacher. My music teacher was blind, and he had the most amazingly delicate, sensitive, sweet countenance. He would guide my fingers on the frets. He had patience because I was this uber perfectionist. Nothing was good enough. I had to get it 100% right. That's what happens when you come from narcissist parents.
Yeah.
Because nothing's ever good enough for them, so you're not good enough for you.
Yeah, it's an inherent trait, I can guarantee you. Yep.
But Jose had patience for me, so I loved him. I wept and wept for days, and my mother was, no, just go to another teacher. No. And that's why I quit playing guitar. I felt disloyal to Jose.
So Jose was back in New York, in
Yes.
Queens, right? So,
Yes.
and then when you moved, you didn't have that connection any longer. It's not like it is today where you could, get from one part of the, area to the other so easily. That would felt like a million miles away, I'm sure.
But not, well, we could have taken a train, but it would have taken me an hour here and an hour back. I would have been alone, which was okay by me. I was super independent, but that's not the issue. For me, it was the loss of connection.
Yeah.
That was the most important thing. And it still is today.
Yep.
Connection.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I mean, that you're speaking my language for sure, right? Did you, as an adult, did you ever reconnect with Jose by chance?
No,
Ah,
no. But I will tell you this, after 20 years of living in Europe and 5 in Japan, I came back to the States. And the first thing I did in 2008 was I picked up a guitar and I took lessons again.
awesome. And you're still playing today?
No,
No.
my fingers are not as agile as they used to be.
Ah,
Uh,
yeah, that's
uh.
tough.
It's like, can really get to a B flat or a C sharp. I'm like,
Yeah.
So after a year, I just gave it up, and it's okay.
Yep.
E for effort, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good on you for trying it again. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so going back to when you were 19 in Japan and you're experiencing this, so you have that first introduction to the culture and the environment, and then I assume the shows start kicking off. You're attending these. What's a couple of lessons that you remember that you're picking up along the way? I mean, as a 19-year-old, I imagine you're impressionistic and obviously seeing things from a completely different lens now because you
Yeah.
didn't like the music before, but now you're sort of kind of falling in love with it. But are there any takeaways that you kind of picked up that really sort of guided sort of that next phase of your career? I'm just curious.
Yes. I think the overwhelming tenacity of myself coupled with the Japanese propensity towards doing a great job at everything,
Hmm.
I totally hooked onto that.
Yep.
Plus, I have an aesthetic sensibility where I need to work in what I consider a beautiful environment. I can make a shithole look gorgeous.
You don't have that on your LinkedIn profile anywhere. I think that needs to be a line right there.
So, my mom was an interior decorator for a long time. So, that kind of rubbed off on me. And um, the Japanese environments are just, they're simply, I would say, visually orgasmic.
Yep.
Everything about it is, it's manicured.
Yep.
And I just felt like I was in this painting and I wanted to be there. I wanted to be inside that canvas.
I love it. And that's still something that sticks to you, through, comes through with you to this day, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I there's the Japanese aesthetic sensibility which really is unmatched.
Yep.
It is unmatched. And but that said, right now I'm sort of into Korean everything. I'm like, okay, Elise, you've had decades with that. Could you please move on? Pull me ahead.
Try something new.
I'm
Well, I have
into,
to introduce you to my friend Carlin Haas. Carlin, went to it's kind of an interesting story. He went to South Korea, was going to be a monk, and went to a bar last night before he goes to monk school or whatever they do as monks. And eventually meets his wife, who that wife didn't work out, but he didn't end up becoming a monk, but ended up getting married, having a daughter, moving back here, and he and I connected, and we just became good friends. But he's very committed to the Korean environment, loves talking about it. So if you want a
I would
connection, there
love
you
to.
go. I mean, he
Love
would
to.
be all over that.
Would love to because I started now with Korean historical dramas. Now I'm into
Yep.
K-pop. Now I'm into K-drama. Now I'm into Korean food. I'm like, oh, kimchi,
Yeah.
bulgogi,
Yeah. So
all that. Nice.
now you're making me hungry. Well, so let me ask you. I want to talk about the book. The book is titled "Under My Skin." A drama, trauma, and rock and roll, which I just absolutely love.
Thanks.
Give me a sense of, okay, what's the title about? Actually, "Under My Skin."
Okay. So it's basically about there's two sides to every person. Their
Yep.
outer and the inner.
Yep.
In this case, the under, because I had to suppress everything in my own home.
Yeah.
I wasn't accepted for me. So my urge probably throughout my life, which I didn't realize until later, was that all I want is to be me. I
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
to be accepted for what I do
Yeah.
and for how I think, but for me. All of that is part of me.
I love that. Well, I got to ask you. So, how much of your upbringing, because I mean, you and I had very similar parental experiences, I think. How much of that life that you experienced in the late 60s, early 70s, do you think that the parents were, that was a generational thing? Like if you met your parents now, like, or even 20 years later from when you were, a little kid, do you think it would have been the same, or do you think it would be adversely different? Or what do you think?
It was just adverse.
Yeah.
It was worse
Yeah.
because they kept on with their craziness
Yeah.
and in denial of that craziness. So it it was like Pac-Man eating up everyone along the way.
Yeah. Except no power pills to find the the counter to it.
None. None. And really to my mother's last dying day, which was 13 years ago, she was still a crazing, screaming Mimi. And I basically
Ah,
told her, I said, listen, I've put up with this. I can't even tell you how long. So continue on and you'll get my wrath with silence.
yeah.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
I did not speak with her. I just went to collect her things. But now she's on my side, on the other side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now we're all like buddy, buddy, and forgiven.
Well, that's good. That's really good. Well, so let me ask you, I mean, obviously based on that kind of upbringing, that there were a lot of lessons that you clearly uh,
Mm,
were I guess lucky enough to drive from and learn from, right? Not many people do that. What I see is someone who said, hey, look, if you're not going to accept me for who I am over here, that's fine. I'm going to move the game over here. And
that's escapism.
yeah.
And you say luck. It's not luck.
Yeah.
Hard work is not luck.
That's true. That's
It's
very true.
dedication.
Good point. Yeah.
It's it's persistence.
Yeah.
It's curiosity.
So let me ask you this. So how did it not consume you? How did it not get you so that you got out from underneath the craziness and were
I,
able to make your own way in life?
I want to say this with all honesty. It did consume me
Yeah.
in my personal relationships. It did not consume me in my outer business world. So I thought.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so what consumed me was the fact that I thought I was super independent, which externally, yes, and adventurous, yes. However, emotionally codependent, and I didn't realize that.
Wow.
I
What
didn't.
was the realization for the codependency? What came about that made you realize, oh wow, this does have a grip on me still.
A couple of really bad marriages.
That'll do it.
But I think what I realized was that I don't want to live this way anymore.
Yeah.
This is wrong. It feels wrong in my body, and it's definitely wrong in my heart.
Yeah.
And so, what happens with children of narcissists is that they become people pleasers
Yes.
because you're trained like a
Yeah.
little circus animal to perform on behalf of your parents, whereby you become the parent of your parents.
Yeah.
Okay, so I finally understood, wait a minute. I'm seeking all this approval. I'm seeking acceptance. I'm pleasing. I'm making decisions based on what'll they think of me?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
making decisions based on, oh, I hope he or she doesn't leave me.
Yeah.
And when I finally understood, wait a minute, it's not about them.
Yeah.
That is when the change occurred. So, can I just
Sure.
add to this? A Buddhist monk went to a hot dog stand in New York City, and he asked for the all vegan with everything on it, gave the vendor $5, moved to the side and waited. After several people are coming and going, he says to the vendor, "Excuse me, can I please have my change?" And the vendor looks at him and says, "Change comes from within." Dumb.
That's pretty good. I love that. Well, so let me switch gears for a second. So you you were writing and you were experiencing this music industry and really kind of following your passion. So how did that lead you into the PR game? Like you have this PR firm and you're very successful at it, and you're clearly you clearly know how to tell a story, which I could see why that would lead you down the PR path, because you've understood this from the background of all the musicians you've covered over the years. But what was the hook for you to move to that direction with your career?
Well, what's interesting is that I was offered this plum job in Japan while I was on the KISS tour to be the PA to this media mogul, and I said yes.
Yeah.
3 months later, I was in Japan on a 1-year contract. So I learned everything about the music industry, from publishing to production, radio, television.
Wow.
Recording, promotion. I even had a gig writing song lyrics. So I learned everything because the Japanese are holistic that way.
Yeah.
And after a year, I told my then boss, "Look, I'd like to stay in Japan. I'm a terrible employee. I need to work on my own. And please, give me the blessing," meaning give me the stamp and the visa so I could stay. And I did. And I formed the first foreign-owned talent and booking agency.
Wow.
So I was 21. Back in those days, 21-year-olds didn't form businesses, basically.
Right.
And no female really did that. And then in Japan.
Especially in Japan. Yeah, I was going to say.
But because I was this young, what do we do with her kind of thing, they all loved me.
I love it.
And they took me in like a daughter. They didn't even know. They took me to geisha houses, like one of the boys. I'm like, okay, this is great. Just don't touch my legs.
What I really don't understand is how you didn't end up in professional comedy. I mean,
when my brother, rest in peace, when he was alive, he always said, like, "Why did you do stand up?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, I tried it. I tried it in Amsterdam, and it was a flop. I don't know. Maybe they didn't understand English. Whatever it was, they were too busy, like, and making noise and gear. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm not, hello, are you listening?
Yeah. I think you should. I think you owe yourself a second stint in Austin's comedy club scene at some point, though, because you were in Amsterdam, so they didn't understand you, and they were drunk or high or whatever. Yeah. Well, yeah. Elise, let me ask you what led you to write this book, and what do you want our audience to know about it that really sort of speaks to why they should seek it out and purchase it?
A couple of things. If you loved the 60s and 70s, or if you wanted to be there but were born way later,
yeah,
that's one reason. The other is the whole music background, because there's music as a theme throughout the book. The other is success in overcoming a lot of trauma and take humor in order to get you through.
Yeah.
Because there is humor throughout it. As well as a sense of adventure for your own life, as bad, as horrible as it is, and it can get pretty rough, it's not the end of the road. Actually, it's the beginning of finding joy. And that may take a long time.
Yep.
However, it's not about the length of time. It really is about, like, what I can never pronounce his name, Thich Tai Dung
Yeah.
Jing
Yeah.
Tai. I'm sorry. I can't pronounce it. He's
I can't
Vietnamese.
either. So, we may put a little subtitle over, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Okay,
Yep.
so it's the process. And everyone in business says that too. It is the process. It's the road that you're traveling on. And the only way you're ever going to know what road that is, it's not about asking others. It's really not even about getting, expert opinions.
Yep.
No, it is about following what your heart says, what feels good to you. So I don't care if you're a mechanical engineer, I don't care if you're a doctor, but what you love doing is carpentry,
Yeah.
or auto mechanics or painting. That's what you have to follow.
I love it.
So that's what you have to follow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's great advice. I love it. Well, as we get closer to the end of this, I always like to ask, and you know me for this ripple connection questions, because it gives people a little bit further insight. And I just have to say to our audience, you've got to pick up this book. You've got to follow Elise on social, because she is such an amazing individual. She will just make you smile, and just has such just a warm presence. I mean, I understand the challenges that you experienced growing up, and as you moved into your young adulthood, but you've come out of this the other side as a real inspiration for a lot of people. And I just, I'm so enamored with everything that you're doing, and the success that you're having, because you're amazing. But let me ask you this question. No, that was a bad segue. Not a but. However, what do you think your superpower is?
Finding the gems and the talents inside others. I'm an archaeologist.
I love that. I love that. Do you have anybody that stands out as an example that you could share briefly?
I have so many. So
Yeah.
let me just take one. When I was living in Amsterdam, which was for 13 years of my life, I had headed up the then first internet division of BBDO, one of the world's largest advertising agencies. So I headed up their European division, internet division.
Wow.
And I met this lovely biracial young man who, this is 1995 or 6 or 7, I don't know, 90s. And I loved his work. He was a visionary. He was a graphic designer, but he understood marketing and branding like no other. He could not get a job in the industry because of his race. I took him under my wing. To this day, I mean, the man, he blossomed.
I love it.
He is now a professor, only in Europe, right? A professor of the visionary future at Utrecht University.
That's awesome. Talk about a ripple.
And he's running for politics.
Wow.
Can I give one more?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
So I am a parent of one love child. And when my son was around 13, 14, a lot of kids were talking about, oh, what are you going to do when you grow up? Which I thought was insane. Yeah. You don't have to know. He is a multiglot. He loves everything. He discovers. He tries it all and everything, and has a very scientific type of mind, but a artistic approach. Okay. So I did something. I took a whiteboard and I said, hey, Florian, my son's name, tell me 5 people that you really, really like, who you think are great people, Number 1 was Michelle Obama. Number 2 was Elon Musk. 3 was Gandhi. I forget the other 2. I said, great. Tell me, what do you like about each one? Give me 5 things. And I kept drilling down. And basically, I said, oh, okay, great. When you grow up, here are the potential fields you should go into. One of them was inventor. The other one was mechanical engineer. And now he's in his senior year, mechanical engineering.
That is awesome. Oh, that's awesome. That's a talent for you to pull that out as a mom. I mean, but gosh, you can pull that out of our audience too. I think that's a phenomenal way to do that.
That's where they should call me, and let's get your talent going, babies.
I love it. What is the best piece of advice that you received, not from a family member, but from someone that maybe you respected and admired in business that you still use to this day?
In so many words, keep believing in your talent, even when nobody else does.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I love that a lot. Where do you find I know as you're in PR, and so you are always looking for, an angle and an approach to be able to tell your clients' stories. And so you're obviously very gifted at that, but where do you find your inspiration personally?
I find my inspiration in stand-up comedy, in nature, but specific places in nature, remote locations like Iceland.
Yeah.
Oh my God, glaciers, but also the tundra.
Yep.
Like
I love that.
nomad type of life, Mongolia. So really far out. Oh, Marfa, Texas.
Yeah.
That's a wild place. So that I find it in my son.
Yeah.
We have a great relation, and in my relations, in my close relations.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. What music are you into now?
Totally hip hop, but it's kind of old school hip hop. Like, it's Kendrick Lamar, it's Logic.
Yep.
A lot of people have moved on beyond that. I also like very exotic music that I hear in soundtracks from Turkey, from Iraq, from different countries.
Yeah.
I love alternative pop. That hasn't really changed. And of course, all the 70s music that I grew up with.
That was your staple. Yeah. Yeah.
I love Motown. I love Lizzo. I think she's terrific.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. It's very eclectic. I mean, that's kind of like me. I really have not found any music I don't like. You can
have
find
found music I don't like.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's one?
Salsa. Sorry, folks. It's like, shut up! It's just it's too clicky, clanky, and
I get that. Okay.
It makes me nervous. It's like, no.
Well, I mean, maybe somebody just needs to take you out salsa dancing. I mean,
maybe.
Experience combined with the music makes a huge difference, I think.
That's
so,
true.
I'm going to put that out there to our audience. Anybody that's a big salsa lover, you got to convert her. So, I mean, let's see what kind of ripples we can create with this show.
I would love that. I would love that.
So 2 last questions. What's the best what's the best thing a client, colleague, or a reader of your book could say about you?
Okay, so readers of my book, I'll go to that.
Okay.
They've said, she's a character. She's a great woman. You got to meet this person. And even one of my fans, he's Greek American, and he was in Greece, and he sent me this care package of Greek spices. Thank you, Bobby. I mean, amazing.
That's awesome.
And then a client, I do book coaching, by the way, and ghostwriting. So one of my clients has said, thank you for bringing the book that was in me for 25 years out to the public. He's a management consultant.
That's awesome. See, you're just creating ripples all over the place. I mean, it's just amazing.
Oh,
So let me ask you this question. What does the ripple effect mean to you?
the ripple effect means do good for yourself, by yourself, meaning do good by your own standards, and bring that part of you or all of you to the world. And it will naturally create that ripple effect, even if it means that you gave somebody a smile, a stranger, or if you've helped an old woman or man across the road in the supermarket, or if you've, kindly done a good deed. Like I always carry 48 bottles of water in my car so I can hand out bottles of water to the homeless because it is friggin' hot in Texas.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that very much. Well, so I said that was going to be my last question, but I have one more.
Okay.
What is a ripple that I could create for you?
Okay, find me an investor because I want to make this book into a film.
Ooh, okay.
I have the director. I'm writing the script. The world's got to see this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have some loose connections in that area. Let me see if we can at least make some introductions. How about that?
Awesome.
All right. I just want a producer credit though.
Of course, executive producer.
Oh, I love it. I never thought of myself.
Show producer. Badass producer.
Hey, I'll take any of those titles. That would be phenomenal. Awesome. Well, I have got to say, this has been an absolute joy. We could talk for hours. There's so many different directions. We may have to definitely do a follow-up here, but how do people find out about the book, number one, and how do you want them to follow you on social?
Okay. So the full title of the book is Under My Skin, Drama, Trauma, and Rock and Roll. Find it on Amazon or in a local bookstore in Texas or Montana.
Yeah.
And if you want to buy it from your local bookstore, then you can just tell them the title and they can order it for you. Okay. Social media. On Instagram, by my name, Elise Krentzel. On Facebook, officially Elise. One word. Officially Elise. That's official, all right? And then on LinkedIn, Elise Krentzel or EK Public Relations. And Excellent. What else? TikTok. The clock is ticking. I better hurry up and get this out of my mouth. Elise Krentzel.
Elise, I am so grateful to know you. I am so proud of the success that you have. I'm just blown away by your story and everything that you're doing. I can't wait to get together and have a proper hug. And thank you for doing this. But I know that my audience is absolutely going to love this episode. I'm so excited for how and what kind of response we get to it, because you have a personality that is like just a lightning rod of awesomeness. And so I am so grateful to have you as our guest on the Ripple Effect podcast. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
I love it. And as I always say, I like to finish off, guys, we'll be back with another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast very soon, but Elise, ripple on.
I will. All right.